well, other stuff won't work. The automated Bluetooth stuff jacked up, so we're all good. Anyway, today we're going to talk about developing your employees. But first, condolences to Phil. He lost his high school football coach. That's a hard thing if you're a ball player to lose your guy. That happened to me a few years ago. So our condolences from the team at EXSIN to you, Phil.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, Coach Pat Pask, lifelong educator, was still teaching 51 years. Just a fine man and great husband and father, and touched a lot of lives like all these coaches do. But yeah, I found out yesterday, and it's a sad day. Thank you. I appreciate that, though. I really do.
You bet, brother. Here's the other thing. So we're going to talk about developing employees today. And I think we can all agree that if we had a coach or a teacher in our life that spent a lot of time with us growing up, they did a lot of hard development work for us. And I think we can all agree that most business owners don't do what your football coach did, or your wrestling coach, or your hockey coach, your volleyball coach, soccer coach, etc. What they did for you, developing you as a young person.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious person I'd talk about is Coach Pask, but there's a lot of people. If you're lucky enough, you have a great relationship with your parents. Your parents are usually your first coaches and teach you right from wrong and what you should do and how you should go about your day and all those things. And then as you get a little older, coaches start impacting your teachers, usually are the next people, or perhaps a pastor at a church or a priest, or but you had those people that come into your lives, and we have those all the way up until usually you're 22, 23 years old. And then unfortunately for a lot of people, get in the workplace and that goes away. And we see that way too much. We've always said one of the things that we agreed upon when we merged our businesses years ago was that being in the military, we were always being trained. We're always being developed. We're always getting ready for the next assignment. And you don't see that a great deal in the private sector. And so we've kind of taken upon ourselves to try to correct that, if you will, in the private sector. And I think it's important. If you don't, you shouldn't expect different results if you do nothing to help people develop.
That's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different. Now, you brought up an interesting point. Business owners typically don't coach their employees, but they coach their kids. They pay for coaches for their kids. But when they come into the office to work, they don't develop them, so they don't increase their own capacity. That little time they take to develop them today, how to do the job, what's expected, a timeline, hold them accountable. They don't do that anymore. I mean, how many times in your life did a coach say, if you're late, you're on the line, right?
Oh, as you can imagine, Dave, last night there was a lot of group text going on from a lot of us guys that played for Coach Pask.
Yeah,
and one of our friends shared the story, said, I was always in trouble. Now, this guy that I'm talking that told this story, he's the guy that we always said be late for his own funeral. And for those of you that are from where I grew up that are listening, I know we always have quite a few that you'll know who I'm talking about just by saying that. But he said, he said, Coach Pask, he said, I remember that one time I went up and I was late, and like always, he said, and to try to get Coach to not be mad at him, he went up and said, oh, Coach, you love me. And he went to bear hug him, and he broke one of Coach's ribs. and Coach, being an old school coach, didn't really let anybody know that till after the fact. But yeah, I mean, it is those little things, being on time, putting team ahead of yourself, all the stuff that's not vogue anymore. It's all about me, it seems like, in many places now, and what's in it for me, and what do I get if this happens, and so coaching's more important now than it's ever been, because it's such a lost art, really. I mean, you just we one of the companies that Dave and I own, we're walking that out right now with the Salesforce and trying to establish some processes, because they haven't really had any, to help them understand what a productive day should look like. It's not that they're not capable. They're all very capable. They've just never been taught. And teaching's hard. I mean, it's hard. People, because what it usually requires is that person to take a hard look at themselves and realize they got to change. Yesterday I had kind of an epiphany towards the end of the day. So, man, I'm doing a bad job at this right now. And, and you go through all the emotions, right? You got denial, you got anger, you got all of it. But
Blame, you're blaming somebody else.
when you get through all that though, and you realize, okay, wait a second, it's good that I've recognized this, because now I can start developing myself. And that's a key thing. It's not just, owners of companies have to give people a platform and a way to develop. They got to help give them tools, and they got to help them develop. Ultimately, though, it's your responsibility to develop yourself. So you got to take those things that you're given, those tools, those processes, the resources, and you got to honestly go out and try to develop yourself personally.
That's fair. So you said two things that are really important that I want to capture for everybody listening today. First, if you're going to develop anybody, you got to start with yourself, right? You got to make sure you know what to do and you have somebody helping you along, because we all need a sounding board. And the second thing, and this is what all great coaches do. They lay a foundation of trust and mutual respect. I mean, I can't think of a great coach I had that to this day I don't love with my heart, and they were super hard on me, right?
Yeah.
Fisher DeBerry, one of the best coaches of all time. Hard son of a gun, but man, I would jump on a bomb for him still today. And I stopped playing football 30 years ago. It's hard to believe, but yeah, for him. So, those are two key things. The second thing, or the third thing that businesses really need to focus on, and we want to talk about is, how are you managing your meetings with your employees, and are you turning those into opportunities to teach, right? You don't get a lot of time. And I sit in so many meetings where so much time is wasted when we could be doing beneficial things for the team. You need to have focused objectives for each meeting to counsel and teach your team.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a plan, right, you can't execute on it. I mean, when you were out running combat missions in the sandbox, you didn't just wake up at 0500 and say, hey, let's hop on a plane and go do this today. I mean, there was a plan, right? There was a plan. If you're unassing the back end of a C-130 getting ready to jump into a hot LZ, you got a plan. Now, like all plans, things don't ever go exactly the way you plan them. And that's where that development comes in, because you gotta sharpen that iron to where you can make adjustments on the fly. You can change direction when you need to. You can do all those things, but it still comes back to fundamentals. I mean, you go back to a football team, right? And when you first show up, first day of practice, it's a little disorganized. There's usually I'm talking about high school. There's some upperclassmen out there that are kind of that know what to do. But even them, it's been a while, so they got to get back in the habit. And before long, within a few days, everybody knows. You get dressed, you come out, you get lined up, you start stretching, you go through your pre-practice or your pre-game warm-ups, you do this, you do that. That's what we're really talking about. That's the process, right? And then, when you're done there, you break off and you go into individual drills with whatever position coach you have. That's part of the process. And then you'll come back together and you'll do team drills, and then you break off again, and it's just, it's giving people a clear path so that they understand what it is they need to be doing. That's what you have to do.
So let's make it simple for everybody, Phil. Let's use this acronym PED, P-E-D.
Yep.
Process or plan, build the process or the plan, execute, and debrief.
Yep.
If you as a business owner follow that simple 3-letter process, your life will be exponentially easier. And what happens? So you build process and you plan. So you give that to your team, right? And talk to them about how to do that. Then you let them go do the job, execute.
Yep.
You watch them while they're doing it, and you debrief, right? Because things happen that were different, that weren't part of the discussion beforehand. And you handle those one-off situations and answer those questions.
Yep.
We explain something to everybody. That's exactly how our military is so strong today. That's exactly what they do every day, day in, day out.
Because if you're doing PED, then you don't have to worry about thinking when you're out executing, right? I mean, if you have a plan, then execution gets a lot easier because you have a plan. You've thought about it. You've spent some time on it. In sales, we'd call it a pre-call planner, right? To bring it down to the individual activity. So if you're going to make 10 calls today, then you should have 10 pre-call plans in place. You don't ever want to wing something, because that's when you just have zero chance of excellence, is when you're out there winging crap. So you go in, you have a plan, you have your pre-call plan, you execute with that prospective client or client. then based on whether it's good or bad outcome, then you do the debrief. You sit down with a peer that's in the, that you trust and that you value, or you sit down with if you're a sales rep, maybe your sales leader, or maybe it's the owner of the company. You say, hey, this is what happened on this call. This is what we did. This was the outcome. Why do you want to do that? Because if it's successful, then you want to figure out, okay, is it because of the process, because of what we did, why we were successful, or did we just get lucky? Because that's part of it too, right? We're just right place, right time. If it's part of the plan and the process is the reason, then you want to duplicate that. You want to go out and make sure other people on the team understands that, hey, this works. We had success with this, and you're able to duplicate that success. If it wasn't successful, then that debrief is where you get to get better. You start talking about, okay, we did this. Maybe we need to try this. What are you doing now? Well, you're creating your next plan. I mean, so it all fits. It all goes hand in hand. And I think that, unfortunately, I think technology, for all the great things technology's done, and it is amazing. I mean, look at us. I'm just got out of a meeting, and I'm sitting in my vehicle doing a Facebook Live with you, and you're sitting at your home office today. So technology is wonderful. All the great stuff it can do for you with marketing, tracking, all the great stuff that's out there. It's also made us lazy. It's also made us to where we don't sit down and do the basic things. And that's really when I had some self-reflection yesterday and was going, I got to get better at this. This is something I'm normally really good at, and I just haven't been doing a good job. It's because I got lazy. It's not that I forgot how to do it. It's not that I don't know it gets great outcomes. It's because I got lazy. Being lazy leads to guilt. Guilt leads to paranoia, and paranoia makes everybody feel bad. I mean, if you're doing your job every day, if you are getting up every day and grinding, having fun, grinding doesn't have to be miserable. If you get up every day and you go out and you grind and you work hard and you execute your plan, right? And you're doing those good debriefs, like we just got done talking about, you're going to feel so fulfilled at the end of every day. It's going to be ridiculous. You're not going to have time to be paranoid because you're too damn busy doing what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, so, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what degree of success you've had in life. It doesn't matter if you own the company or you're a day one employee. Everybody has to make sure they don't become lazy and lethargic, and they don't get in a rut, and they don't say, well, this is good enough. Nothing great comes from things being good enough. Nothing.
That's a fact.
So you got, it's hard work. I mean, that's hard work. Especially, it's much harder to fight laziness when you've reached some degree of success than it is when you haven't. Because when you haven't, you got to pay the bills. You got to if you don't get up and go do some work, you're not going to make it. When you got plenty of money in the bank, it gets easy to get lazy because your life doesn't change one month to the next.
That's a fact.
So you got to really pay attention to this. And I think as we're talking about this, Dave, I think one of the things that we've got to really stress to our business owners is don't get lazy.
We're blessed. Don't get lazy, honestly. I mean, most of our business owners work their butts off.
Yeah, most of them do, but I think there's a lot of them out there that let's talk about that for a second. There's a difference between being busy and being productive. And I think sometimes we get busy, right? Yep. But it's usually busy doing stuff that doesn't move the needle. I'm going to talk about myself. I'm busy every day. Every day I'm busy. Am I productive every day? Nope.
No, haven't been.
That's right. But you gotta have these things in your life that make you evaluate yourself, right? I mean, personal development only works, number one, I believe, and it's the oldest saying in the world, is if somebody's ready to be taught, then the teacher will present itself, right? And so you got to want to develop. You got to want to get better. You can't just have excuses and, excuse my language, bullshit every time somebody asks you about, doing this or doing that. You can't just have a line of crap with busy stuff. And we talk to people all the time that are busy as heck. But if you sat down and say, okay, but what did you do to move the needle? What did you do to make more money for you and your family? What did you do to move the mission of the company forward today? What did you actually do?
Well, and I
Most
yeah,
most people can't give you a good answer.
and I think that goes to, this is the biggest challenge for business owners, is they forget that their job is to delegate and build capacity, right? To build the ability to do the things they need to do, to work on their business as opposed to in their business.
Yep.
And that's part of this employee development. As you're building your employees and your team, you are creating capacity for you as the business owner to work on your business and get those things done that you always say you don't have time to do. I mean, how many times have we heard, I don't have time to plan. I don't have time to look at what tomorrow looks like. I just got to get through today. Well, if that's where you are in your business, you're drowning and you're going to have a cash flow problem, or you're going to have a heart attack. Those are your choices, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple. So, this is one of the things that I love the most. I got to spend yesterday back on the base with a bunch of friends, talking to them, and it was refreshing being back in a place where people are focused on the future and the mission and getting things done and planning and what does it look like. And I want to encourage every business owner on here today is to think about this. What is my development plan for my employees? How are they going to execute? How are we going to debrief? And how is it going to help me build capacity? I had a saying, and I still have it today, to everybody I ever worked with: don't be a pigeon. Pigeons fly into your office and poop on your desk and leave, right? They throw a problem on your desk for you to handle as the owner and leave. And I was talking to Hitch yesterday, who's a wing commander at a base here, and he was describing something he's dealing with as he's moved from group command to wing command, leading a larger organization. And he said, man, I just have to get my other commanders to solve problems and not throw them on my desk all the time. And it resonated with me because we're talking about developing employees. You as an owner have to get your team willing and give them the ability to solve your problems so it takes it off of your desk.
And I think, and you can't overstress, or you can't stress enough, the 6 P's, right? Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. I mean, if you have 6 P's in your life, and I'll say it again, proper planning prevents piss poor performance. You got to plan. You've got to plan. I mean, it's amazing the capacity to get things accomplished with excellence when you plan it. It's also amazing how poorly you're going to perform when you don't plan it. I mean, it's just, you're going to wake up, it's 3 p.m, you haven't got a damn thing done.
It's going to be a train wreck.
Train wreck. Here
comes a train.
I mean, it's I mean, you've got to, you've got to give yourself an opportunity to be successful. If you do those things, great things are going to happen. I don't care how talented you are. Some of the most successful people I know are the least talented as far as God-given talent that I've ever seen. It doesn't mean they don't have any talent, because guess what? Being able to plan, being able to execute, being able to debrief, those are the 3 biggest things. If you can do those 3 things, you're going to be successful. I mean, and the biggest of all those 3 is execute. You've got to go execute. I get an email yesterday from a group that Dave and I we have a franchise as well where we help people get into business. And I get an email from them reminding me that I hadn't closed a deal in 180 days. That was a slap in my face. Right? But I'm glad they did. How much you want to bet I close a deal here pretty quick?
That'd be a good idea. They'd be happy about that.
Well, I'd be happy about that. You'd be happy about that. We'd all be happy about that. Right? But the point being is we, this is something that we spent a lot of money to be a part of. Haven't done a damn thing with it. Why? No plan, no execution. So it happens to everybody. And so you've got to make sure you're planning. You got to make sure that planner process is there. You got to execute on that plan, and great things are going to happen. I mean, they just are.
Wise words. I think we're going to end with that today, because it just really goes into what we're trying about developing your employees. Plan, execute, develop, debrief. Give your employees a fighting chance. So just throw them to the wolves with no plan and not sure how to execute, and don't, give them help to mentor them and grow. So with that, go ahead, Phil.
All I was going to say is again, reach out to Dave and I. I've always believed if people are self-aware, those are pretty good people to learn from. And I can tell you, Dave and I are pretty self-aware. There's nobody that's harder on us than ourselves. And I think that, for the business owners out there, being a good coach, being a good developer of people starts by understanding who you are and taking a hard look at yourself. And when you do those things, you're able to really go help other people. And at the end of the day, as a leader, that's your job. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Stop the stress at your level. Stop all the pucker. Stop all the crap. Stop it at your level. Get control of it. Then you can go help the people within your organization have more fruitful, beneficial professions.
That is a fact. And with this episode of EXSIN Live, Dave and Phil, we are out of here.